Welcome to the Train Like a King podcast, dedicated to all things paddling, designed to help paddlers of all levels get motivated to get out on the water. Tune in, grab your paddle, and let's train like a king. Kia ora, guys, and welcome back to another Train Like a King podcast episode. On this episode, we'll be discussing the challenges and rewards of balancing life and paddling. Paddling, especially elite paddling, requires a significant amount of time and dedication, and it can be challenging to balance this with other aspects of life, such as work, family, and social activities. However, with proper time management and support, it is possible to achieve a healthy balance and excel in both paddling and other areas of your life. So let's dive into this topic, which I think a lot of people familiar with, having to balance their paddling life, whether it's a social paddling life or a competitive paddling life or an elite paddling life with every other thing that's going on. So the first talking point I want to address is the importance of setting clear goals. Often people struggle to find motivation to train consistently. And one of my biggest things is, always having a goal in mind, a goal race, or maybe it's a performance goal or a physical goal or a social goal in mind, something that you can work towards, something that you can aim for. And it gives me a sense of motivation to get out on the water and train. For me, it's racing. It's competitive racing. I look at all the big and small events that are coming up, and I use that as motivation. Like, I really want to do good at that race, which makes me feel good. I can celebrate the wins, even the losses. But then knowing that once that race is complete, I can look to the next one. And that's the cool thing about sport. And you should never really judge your performance on one event. Rather than looking at it at one event, look at it at multiple events. So in that way, even if you don't do too well in one event, you know that you've always got another one to potentially do better in. It's always challenging yourself, and rather than, like I said, defining your performance from one event, you're creating an average over all of your performances. So it gives you more of a chance to continuously be working on yourself, and that goes with anything in life, not just sport or paddling. Setting clear goals uh, enables you to work towards them. So whether that's paddling, whether that's your work life, whether that's like your financial situation, your future investing, things like that. It's always good to have clear goals. And because this podcast is all about balance, you want to have goals for both. That sometimes might require a bit of sacrifice. I might sacrifice work goals or even family goals just for a particular race. But once that particular race is done and there's no more real important races, you might flip the switch and focus a little bit more on family, on work, and things like that. So that's number one, is setting clear goals. Number two, the impact of training on mental health. So elite paddling requires a significant amount of physical and mental endurance. And this is a tough one. This is a tough one because it does take a lot of energy when you are preparing for big races. And just in general, the amount of training that you do and the energy that goes into the training, it can subtract from other things. And for example, pretty well difficult to be a full-time athlete training 6 days a week, 2 to 3 times a day, yet still derive the energy required to work a full-time job, especially if your job is very, very requires a lot of mental energy. Because for if for an example for me is like coaching, for example, requires a lot of mental energy. And I imagine if I was coaching full time, which I don't coach full time, it is very, very demanding, I guess, on the brain. When you're out there coaching, you have to think about what you're doing constantly. So it is a really difficult balance to have. You know, you have to really take care of your mental energy when you're trying to balance both pedaling and work life. I think really, and we'll touch on this a little bit later, one of the most important ways of doing that is not only making sure that your training is balanced, but your nutrition and your hydration. And I'll touch on that a little bit in a upcoming point. But just know that you have to understand the impact that training has on your overall energy, with its physical energy and mental energy, and you have to try and balance that in a way that you can succeed in both. The next point is finding a balance between training and rest. So this goes hand in hand. So ideally, with an appropriate training program, you will have this on lock. You will have a good understanding of what you can do, the ratio of training on the water versus rest time. And this is this is probably this is very subjective, I guess, because I believe that it's largely based on experience. I mean, I could prescribe you a training program right now based on where your current fitness level is, but it's not until you actually do the training plan that you realize, oh, this training plan is maybe a little bit too much for me. I'm struggling in these other areas. Or on the other hand, it may be you may be prescribed a training plan and you think, oh, this isn't enough, and you're not going to know that until you actually get out there and test it. Because at the end of the day, there's only so much that a coach or a training plan can do for you. It's up to you to fill in the blanks, to make those small adjustments that only you have the subjective feeling for. Only you know your body. You know your mental energy. You know when you're performing well on and off the water, and so it's up to you to make those small adjustments. And it's really critical to be able to do that. I always advocate in my training plans that it's your like you want to push yourself, but you also want to understand when it's time to take a day off, for example. So that's all dependent on you and your current stage of your fitness and your paddling journey. You know, you may be a paddler that can only get on the water 3 times a week versus someone who can get on the water six days a week, multiple times a day, and still function all good at work or um, at home. So it's about understanding that training and rest balance, and everybody is different. So trial and error. Obviously, getting a good plan and a coach that can help you with a bit of outside recommendations is always good. Moving on to the next point, balancing paddling and other aspects of life. So elite paddling can be time consuming, And it can be challenging to balance with other aspects such as work, family, and social activities. So it's important that you do, manage your time really well and make sure that you prioritize things. Like I said earlier, sometimes some races might be priority, sometimes family things might be priority, sometimes work things might be priority. So having a clear plan and understanding those when those specific things are priority are helpful. For example, it's best to, you may have 6 races coming up in the next 6 months, but only one of them is a very important race. Might be the World Championships, or might be the Molokai Solo, might be the Tiaito. You choose one of those main priority ones, and maybe you state to your family, your partner, or your work that this is the one big goal that I want to focus on. So during this time, I might be a little bit distracted. Whereas, you know, if you have a family event, you might have a wedding coming up, you might have a birthday, you might have a work function, or might have to work overtime in a certain period. Then you make that priority, even though it may fall on a race day. If that race day isn't priority, like you've stated in your overall annual plan, then it's okay. You just let that race go and do what you got to do. Find that balance and move on. That's what it's all about. The next point I want to talk about is, and I just want to touch on it without diving too deep because I could probably do a whole podcast on this, which is nutrition and hydration. So, elite paddling requires a healthy diet and lots of hydration to fuel your body and support training. And for all of you that follow me on Instagram, will know that I love to eat, love to cook, and love a good treat every now and then. I'm not as restrictive as I used to be. I used to be really strict on what I eat. However, I think I was borderline male athlete triad syndrome, which is basically, well, I don't know the true definition, but part of it is thinking that you basically under fueling to the point where it can diminish performance. But in your mind, you think that it's going to be better for you, but basically, it's almost ends up being a low key starvation. Like you kind of starve yourself thinking, okay, this is going to make me better, but sometimes it's not always going to make you better. So nowadays, especially because I'm working, I do often do 12-hour shifts, and I do training before that. Wake up at 4 a.m., do training, go do my 12-hour shift, and then I train after. I can't, for example, do a fasted regime trying to do that, because if I did fast and I had no energy at work, I might have an accident, might have do a mistake, or just I need that energy, not just for training, but actually I need that energy to maintain mental clarity when I am at work and not be grumpy and all that type of stuff too. So, and it's really important for your recovery too, is making sure that you have the energy to refuel and recover, and you're hydrating a lot to keep your body functioning the best possible. Like I said, I'm not really strict. I don't like cut out all carbs or even all sugars and stuff. I do try and maintain I try and eat lots of fruits and vegetables, especially throughout the week. And then I might have a treat on the weekends. I'm not against having a treat every now and then, whether it's ice cream, biscuits, whatever. If you're training, if your energy output supports it, I'm all for it. Although I am still an advocate of, you have to get in the vegetables and fruit and real food as much as possible, for sure. Low glycemic carbohydrate is probably the best form of carbs. Oats, you know, kumara, even potatoes, because they're real, like real food, real veggies that are carbohydrates, real protein, if not, supplementing with protein and whatever. So, not going to dive too deep into that, but yeah, balance is key. Yeah, balance is key. Next point is role of support system. So, elite paddling requires a supportive environment, both on and off the water. Um, it's really important that you have a support system. Whether it's coaches, whether it's your teammates, family, friends. This is really important. It's important to have people that support you, and I'm very fortunate enough to have a very supportive partner and family and teammates. And so it just, especially when you have friends who paddle too, that's always a a good thing to have, because if it's on the weekend and there's a downwind happening, you can get together and go and paddle, and it just makes the paddle a little bit more enjoyable. I'm not afraid of training on my own, 100%. I can do that every day of the week, but it's always cool to get out there and paddle with others, and just like race day, really. And yeah, so really build that support system. The next point is overcoming challenges. So balancing life and elite paddling can be challenging, and there may be obstacles along the way. And so, like one of those obstacles I said earlier is like maybe you do have a bad performance. You don't achieve what you wanted to achieve. However, don't let that one thing define you. Don't let that one race define you. Don't let that one bad day at work define you. Don't let that mistake that you made at home, that one fight with your family member, define you. There's always an opportunity to come back and do better, and that's just life. So you know um I heard this. I was watching Lauren Spalding interview with Yeti yesterday, I believe, and she talked about overcoming challenges as a little bit like catching waves. Sometimes it gets difficult and hard, but if you just push that little bit harder to get over that little hump, it's going to open up so much more opportunity. So, using the analogy, like when you're catching a wave, it requires a little bit of hard work, but once you've done that hard work, you get to enjoy the ride. And that's what it's all about, overcoming those challenges. And then the last point for this topic is going to be the rewards of balancing life and elite paddling. So obviously it requires a lot of dedication and effort in this sport, but the rewards can be really, really significant. So there are a lot of benefits to being able to balance this lifestyle. Not only physical benefits, fitness, but you've got the four walls of your hauora, which is like your overall health and well-being. You have the physical fitness, you get the mental fitness, you get the spiritual, which is can be hopes and aspirations for the future, and you get the social, which is your family, your whānau. All of these things can be improved with paddling, and that's what I love about it, is that it is more than a sport, it's a lifestyle. And I actually, when I was at university, and I was paddling quite a lot, so didn't have to balance as much as I would now. But I actually enjoy the challenge of balancing, say, work, family, and paddling, because it makes those successes a lot better. They make you feel a lot better because you've had to put a lot more effort all around to be successful. You may not be a professional paddler who's only paddling, getting on the water every day and only doing that. You have to make sacrifices around your family, around your work to succeed, and it makes those successes just a, taste a little bit more sweeter, a little bit more sweeter. So that's it for this topic. A lot of information in this one little episode, but I just wanted to, because I had a few people talking about, balancing life and paddling, which is majority of us. Majority of us, unless you're Manutia me on, we're balancing work and peddling life and things. So hope you guys enjoyed the podcast. Make sure you listen to the outro, check out Train Like a King, training plans, and buy some merchandise, and support the podcast, share it out on all your platforms and whatnot, and help us get the podcast out there. So kia ora, have a good day, and good luck for your next race. Sure. Thank you for listening to another episode on the Train Like a King podcast. Check out trainlikeaking.com for training plans, merchandise, and coaching opportunities. If you haven't already, give us a follow so you don't miss another episode. Catch you on the next one.